Here we go. You know what's going down, right? Like that. Yeah.
I'm Dmitri. I founded Rock, Paper, Scissors, which is a PR firm that works in the music industry. I'll be the moderator for the conversation. This is on music marketing. That's where you are today. And we'll discuss the details, trends, and career pathways on this topic. We're joined by some of the industry's top leaders in the space. So let's begin with some very brief panelist introductions. I'll ask each of you to just take 1 minute to tell us a little bit more. Lorena, Garcia, Waheibi, Senior Manager, Digital Marketing at Primary Wave. Tell us a little about yourself, your role in the industry, and you feel free to correct me if I said your name wrong.
It's okay. I just recently got married, so I'm getting used to it too. People recognizing me for that. Hi, my name is Lorena Garcia Waheibi. I am a Senior Manager of Digital Marketing at Primary Wave. Primary Wave is one of the leading independent publishers. You may have heard of us working with Bob Marley, Whitney Houston, and a lot of the greats. Here at Primary Wave, I work with Olivia Newton-John, Whitney Houston, and some other management acts like Plain White Tees, Melissa Etheridge, Fantasia. So I kind of help out with many different genres, many different levels of careers, and just make sure that all of their music campaigns, touring, everything is aligned with the goals that we have.
Awesome. Thank you. Looking forward to hearing more from you in just a bit. Andrew Pilcher, you're the Music and Entertainment Partner Manager at Tradable Bits. Could you give us 1 minute on your role and how it ties into marketing, please?
Absolutely. Super excited to be here today. So my name's Andrew. I'm the Partner Manager for Music and Entertainment here at Tradable Bits. So what Tradable Bits does is we're a fan engagement and digital marketing software tool that kind of is used across the industry, music, sports, entertainment, that kind of thing. I work on the music side, so I work with everything from festivals, artists, labels, that kind of thing, all based around digital marketing and like first-party data. So a bit more on the data analytical side of marketing, but I'm really excited to talk about kind of that side of the industry today.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Glad you're here as well. Madisyn, Holland, I understand you're a brand manager at Scoremore. Can you give us a brief intro about what you do there and your role in marketing as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Madisyn again. For those that don't know, Scoremore is a promotions company that produces music festivals in Texas and some of your favorite artist-curated music festivals, including Astroworld and Dreamville. There I am a brand manager, so kind of leading the charge on social media, anything that's like outward branding facing, so including creative, but really my primary role is like building a voice and the brand for pretty much everything.
Super cool. I love the different roles that we have represented here. We've got events and experiences, producer, promoter. We've got a publisher, and we've got a digital marketing data company, I guess you could say, Andrew. It's a really cool mix. And again, I've got a background in PR as well. So it's cool to have you guys. Thanks for making the time. I'm going to just ask a bunch of questions. We have probably until about the half-hour mark to just talk, and then we want to open up to questions for the last 15 minutes. We're really into engagement at all access, so love to see people answering some of the questions themselves in the chats or sharing thoughts too. So keep up the great conversation there. Lorena, I think I might start off with you. What do you think is the most important aspect of marketing in music?
That's a great question. I just want to acknowledge too, just the fact that we're all in these different areas of music. And so there's always different priorities,
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think from where I'm coming from, just in the publishing world and in the legacy catalog, I think it's very important to hit those target audiences that you may have within the fan base, but also reintroducing them to the younger generations, because I think especially with technology and just the advancements there, there could be an opportunity of making sure that your catalogs, your music are presented in a way that is effective and actually gets through to people. So I would say that it's very important to just make sure to keep an open mind about where you are targeting these markets. So let's say, for example, I'm sure it's going to come up a lot, but TikTok is a great example of starting a channel for your artists. For example, Melissa Etheridge, right? We're working with her. She's gone live on the platform and worked directly with TikTok to do that. And it was amazing for her to just play music, talk about her new album. And, it's just a new sector, I guess, that she never thought a year ago she would be on TikTok going live and speaking to that generation. But here we are. It's amazing to see how it just continues to progress.
I appreciate that, Lorena. I think I kind of embedded in some of what you were talking about. It's, first of all, it's kind of like, what is the message that you're getting out there? Who's the target audience? And then how do you reach them as well? That's kind of like the whole channel on marketing. And it is cool to see from a publisher perspective too. You guys represent the songwriters and the rights of the songs themselves. So you might be pushing those recordings because those songs are embedded in them, but you also might be pushing other ways in which those song rights can be used and exploited, as they say in the music industry.
Absolutely. There's always opportunity.
Yeah. You know what, Madisyn, just to get a whole different perspective, what do you think is the most important aspect of marketing and music, since you're more on the live side?
Well, I think, and it's my perspective again, I think really the root of all of it is just building authentic community. Which is really important because it doesn't really matter what you're selling or what you're giving or what you're marketing. As long as you have an authentic community around you that connects to it and you can connect to them, I think that's the most important. Like you'll learn what they want, how they want it, how you can talk to them.
It's so interesting when you walk into a panel like this where we've got a lot of people just learning about the music industry for the first time to hear these folks that are veterans in the space talking at this top level right at the beginning. You're like, what is that going to mean for a job? Authentic community, authenticity, Is there anything, Madisyn, that you can add just like a little bit of flavor around, like maybe an example or something where people who maybe haven't worked in the space that you're working in right now could sort of get a sense, what exactly does she mean about building an authentic community?
Yeah, so I can give an example directly related to social media. So I manage a lot of pages in and outside of music, and engagement is one of the top things. So you can have a huge following, but if your engagement isn't there or it doesn't match up, it kind of doesn't matter. It makes your following empty. But if you have a smaller page and you have an authentic community built around you, that engagement can be so much higher, and then you can mobilize that group of people to actually do things, which is more important. So if you have a smaller group of people, but you can make the larger majority of them raise their hand if you ask them to, versus having 10 times the following and you say something and it's kind of like a little echo chamber, having that strong community kind of makes it a lot more worth it, in my opinion.
Oh, really interesting. So the size of the community may change a little bit on the tactics in terms of what feels authentic. If you're a celebrity and an icon, you might be able to pull one thing off, but if you're sort of just a developing artist or developing concert series or festival, you might have to sort of like really be on top of like those back and forth conversations that happen in social media.
Yeah, I think everyone can have a different approach, as Lorena mentioned, just depending on what it is. But as long as you have, some direct connection that's meaningful to your audience, it goes a really long way.
Nice. Cool. So Andrew, I want to get you in on the mix. Oh, sorry, Lorena, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to add to that because I completely agree with Madisyn and the fact that, just like going back to Melissa Etheridge, I think she had one of the first fan clubs online, and it just really shows in her community. I just started working with her about a year or so, but it's not much of me building something new. It's very much already established. So you have to really look at, what communities are you engaging with and how long and who and what. It's very like a complex system.
Cool. I'm glad you mentioned that. It kind of leads into what I wanted to ask Andrew, which is kind of about defining the audience as well. And Andrew, at Tradable Bits, you guys do a lot with that. Can you share the process of defining the audience through digital means?
Yeah, absolutely. And Lorena and Madisyn pretty much hit the nail on the head. It's building that community and really driving that fan engagement. And then where we take it one step further is understanding who these people are and actually owning the data and understanding more kind of data points on these people. And that really arms you as a marketer to understand your audience and kind of create and drive ads and that kind of thing to them that are relevant, because there's nothing worse than getting an ad for a band that you don't listen to or you are not a fan of. So that's kind of what we do, is really trying to understand the fan at a different level. So basically flipping the marketing funnel on its head and starting with like super fans and people who are loyal, who we know engage with the brand and with the festival and artists and that kind of thing.
Very cool. All right, I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I had actually thought I'd ask Madisyn this, but it's really, I just want to make sure everybody's involved in the conversation. There was interest in this panel in talking about brand strategy. I'm curious if any of you, start with you, Madisyn. Do you have any tips for creating a brand strategy?
My best tip, anytime anyone asks me, is like my method is just creating a person. So whatever that brand is, it's like, what do they look like? What do they wear? Who are their friends? What do they listen to? Where do they go? How do they dress? How do they type? What emojis do they use? And I build it out as much as possible. And to me, that helps me identify and align with what this brand is supposed to be. And the more that you continue to do it, the more it will continue to develop, as we are humans, like the same thing. And what you may originally had might change a little bit, but it just continues to grow. That's kind of how I look at it. So I have like little split personalities in here anytime I'm managing multiple brands, because they're all different people. They speak differently.
Can you give, you don't have to tell us which brand it's for, but can you tell us an example of a persona that you sort of have identified for one of the brands you're working with?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're literally all different. So, I mean, there are multiple festivals that I have, but one of the funnest ones, I think, from my perspective and just seeing it grow, is Jambalaya, which is like a one-day music festival that travels from city to city. And something that I noticed is that our audience is like very like troll and like meme heavy, and I just like really used it to our advantage. So I'm like, okay, this is like a mid-20s kid that, you know, just probably graduated high school, entered into college, listens to like a lot of the coolest music and like puts their friends on, but on the internet, they are a troll. They don't take anything seriously. They just do a lot of jokes. And I can just like continue to build it out. They don't type in proper grammar. They don't use like exclamation marks all the time. They type in lowercase letters. They use like, you know, certain emojis, certain words. Yeah, but it would differ from like a Dreamville festival where it's a little bit more loving and caring and, you know, types a little bit more proper. And, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be on the latest memes, latest trends, because it is cool. It just is what it is.
Cool. That's great. I appreciate those two examples. I think that helps people kind of let it click, sort of like what you mean about developing personas around brand strategy. Do either Andrew or Lorena, do you guys want to say anything else about brand strategy? Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, so I actually work with Jambalaya and Dreamville as well, and Madisyn does an amazing job online. It's definitely cool to see, because we work with a lot of different festivals as well, and being able to see the different festivals take on their own little brand identities and personalities within the space is great. And Jambalaya and Dreamville do a great job as inserting themselves kind of into the crowd instead of kind of talking down to the crowd. So they're almost come across as if it's someone you would meet at the festival. So on Twitter and stuff, they're always clapping back to people who are trolling, which I think is amazing. It's always hilarious to see. And it's very much a one-to-one communication with the fan, which is kind of the direction we see a lot of these brands going in.
Just to be clear, the persona for the All Access Festival is not trolling. I don't want to see any trolling in the chat. We're talking about it. We're not embodying it here. No, but that's cool. That's cool to see, to kind of hear how that all plays out, and that authenticity of interacting with the personas in the way they expect to sort of engage is super interesting. I would not want to be around a brand that's doing that. I'd probably cry.
No, we have a lot of fun together. They love it. We're friends. Like, we have
it's a very positive back and forth for sure.
Yeah, it's like words of affirmation, but for our festival group.
Nice.
It's crazy, but it works. Trust me.
So let's get a little more specific now. Lorena, you brought up TikTok. Obviously, it's on a lot of people's mind because it's blowing up just in terms of engagement across all sorts of industries and fields and interest areas, hobbies, and so forth, but certainly in music too. Are there preferred social channels for promoting a band or artist image versus promoting their music?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every social media channel is going to offer something different, right? Or at least it was like that in the beginning, and now it's like we can be everyone. So it really depends on what your goals are, and just to like back it up a step too with your brand strategy, it's very important. Your brand strategy is going to allow you to realize, okay, you know what? We use Tumblr for some things. We use Instagram because we're more of a visual. We use Twitter because we want to, clap back at people. We want to be really engaged and use our voice. So it really depends. It's all intertwined. So you have to make sure that you do the research, you do the visualizing, you do the tone of voice per se of what you're trying to achieve, so that you can then go into a more singular focus of, okay, maybe we don't need to be on Facebook because that's an older demographic, and we'd rather tune into TikTok and start creating meme content on there because it makes more sense to what we are doing. So that's the good thing about the day today, because I think before there was only like the major three, right? So everyone had to try to like compile their ideas and make it fit into those specifics. Where now it's like, it seems like every year there's multiple apps coming out that some trend and do really well, and then some go away, but there's still communities on there, and maybe that's where your community is, so you keep it. Like, let's say Snapchat, right? I know I don't particularly use it, but I know some people who use it every single day. So the more that new platforms come on, you have to start like understanding where do you want to reach the people that you are trying to reach. Because if you try to do everything, and if you're working on multiple accounts, it's going to be a lot of effort, a lot of time, and hopefully you have a big team to help you out.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's the question almost asks like, well, there's these different channels, and how do you how to use this channel versus this channel, but it's always evolving and changing. And so you kind of have to like dip in long enough to know, like, is your audience there or your target group there? Are they using it a certain way? Maybe they're using Twitter, but they're using Instagram in a different way. They're using TikTok, but they're using YouTube in a different way. And you kind of have to figure out like, what does that mean for your brand, and what content you're promoting at that any given time.
Absolutely. And they evolve as well, right? Like I think this time last year, I don't think TikTok you could go live, but now it's like one of the main pushes that they're doing on their app. So there's many different ways, in keeping that open mind of how some things will work, some things won't, and it's better to focus on what does for you and your brand and your community, and leave behind what doesn't.
Yeah, sorry, MySpace. Come on, guys. It's Andrew, I mean, you guys lean into a lot of emerging marketing tools and concepts. Lorena mentioned that there's these trends that are going up and down for different social media platforms and practices. What are some trends in marketing that are on your radar right now?
The biggest one is ads that don't look like ads. I think that's the biggest one we see a lot on TikTok. I know, like personally, when I'm on there, I'll be scrolling, see something, I'll catch my eye, I'll watch it, and then I'll see sponsored in the bottom left. And I'm like, oh, they got me, right? So it's really creating that content that doesn't feel like content, that really hooks you as a viewer and is relatable. I think is the biggest thing. It's finding, like we talked about, people who we understand and who we're kind of targeting. And making that content just something that they would be interested in, instead of just being kind of an ad we would maybe see 2-3 years ago on like YouTube or something like that.
I dig it. Okay, so ads that make you feel like you're not. That's kind of like that. What Madisyn was talking about authenticity is like, know when an ad is an ad, but when you don't know an ad is an ad, you're sort of like, you get hooked in. You're like, wait, this is just perfect content for me. Pretty cool. Madisyn, are there some other trends in marketing that you are kind of keeping an eye on? What are the cool stuff? What should these kids know about?
I'm kind of bouncing off of Andrew and Lorena here, just because the biggest thing that comes to mind to me, especially within having so many different, brands and festivals or artists or whatever it may be, I always I think the part of the biggest strategy is like understanding the trends, but also knowing which ones aren't for you. Because as a brand, you can see trends, but there's nothing worse than seeing a brand follow a trend that is like, oh God, they just ruined it, So just like understanding what they are, but understanding even more which ones are for you and which ones you should participate in, especially per platform. Like you said, Andrew, I think like one of the reasons why TikTok works so well is because not every brand has figured out how to get on it yet. So it's like a lot of like consumers, but the brands that have figured out how to get on it, if you're scrolling for an hour, you can just like get that little ad that slipped right in, and it's perfect because it looks like any other TikTok. And now you've watched it and you're like, damn it. All right, let me see what they got. You know, I respect it.
Nice. Yeah. Lorena, are there some marketing trends that you're keeping an eye on? I mean, obviously you brought up TikTok early. Are there any other things that it's kind of like things you're testing out, experimenting with, or things that you want? You're like, oh, we're just starting to get a handle on this. What's the cool new stuff?
Yeah, I think there's a big explosion, happening with NFTs right now. So those are being rolled out. I'm sure people are starting to understand it. I don't 100% understand it, if I'm being honest, but I do know that it's cool, that people are buying into it, that, you get to work closely with creatives to just have fun with it and figure out a way to make something special that's a digital collectible online. I think goes back to, the baseball cards of the day when people used to collect, and it just used to be the fact that you have it and that you own it it's what makes it special. So there's definitely some cool things coming out from our end that I'm very excited about, but it's also great to see what people have done already with it. And I'm sure it's only just going to evolve.
I think what's really interesting about what you say, Lorena, is that for many years at this point, we've been talking about social platforms as kind of being the place to put content. And then that content kind of lives on those platforms. And you have some control, but you don't have a lot of control. Like when Facebook switched to where you pretty much had to have advertising to get brands to be put in front of your audiences and so forth, that kind of changed things for people. And you kind of see that get repeated on platform after platform. But what you're talking about with NFTs, people are starting to do something that's like platform agnostic in a way, or at least it's a platform where you feel like there's a little more, I would say, portability of the content. So there's some musical or visual content that you feel like as an artist or a manager or a publisher or a label, you can own that content and what you do with it and how you use the data that you get from your fans is totally different than if you post it on social media, you might not necessarily get the data. You might not have direct access to those fans again, which I think is one of the bigger challenges of social media. And then Lorena, like from NFTs, you can also look at these metaverse, like Roblox and Minecraft type of experiences, or broader to just any video games where there's artists that are putting together their own they're gaming with their fans, or
Absolutely.
or they're building their own games and they're saying, come to my game.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, I know from the whole 2020 live streaming perspective, right? It seemed like everybody was on Instagram Live, or it was just insane. And Melissa Etheridge and her team, and working together, we decided to have her own platform for her to live stream. So she did over 300 shows. She's still on there, and her fans subscribe directly. So we own all of that data. And I know that this is like more of a bigger situation, right? Because it depends on what kind of budgets you have. Not everyone is going to be able to do something like this, but it is a cool example of just how I guess in the weeds you can get if you don't have to just rely on other social media platforms anymore. You can build your own if you have the audience and the budget.
Awesome. Were you gonna say something, Madisyn?
Yeah, I was going to add, just in terms of trends, like within like social media platforms, I definitely say short form videos. So even reels within Instagram, but then also Community, which is the texting platform, which is like really great, to Lorena's point, on connecting with people outside of social media on like a one-to-one basis.
Very cool. Cool. We have a few more minutes and we're going to open up to Q&A. By the way, if you have a question, if you're in the chat, you'll see there's another little heading next to chat that says Q&A, where you can add questions there as well. So feel free. We're starting to get a few questions in, but I want to ask just one, maybe two more questions of our panel before we switch to Q&A. I guess, Andrew, let's talk a little bit about data and analytics in regard to growing your brand. How important are that? How should we be thinking about data?
Honestly, I don't think it can be it's so understated. Data is the new oil, basically, right? It adds value to your company, to your brand, to your artists when you can start to understand from the artist side where your fans live, where they are, kind of what their affinities are for even other artists. Being able to understand who else they listen to is huge, and that's something that we like to provide with our partners is understanding, like I said before, is different data points on people. What do they do on Facebook? What do they do on Instagram? What do they do on Spotify? Twitch, Discord, all these kind of things. And we start to pull in different data points and really understand like a 360 view of the fan. And that helps you kind of just push them further down the funnel. Again, understand them more, build out those demographic stats. It's just something that you can physically, not physically own, but you can own in your own CRM, that you're not relying on all these tech giants like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter to hold that data for you. And they kind of just give you what they want. But if you can flip the switch on them and actually start to own that yourself, and have those direct one-to-ones like Madisyn and Lorena are saying, that's huge. And you own that forever. That's something that no one can take away from you. You always have, and it evolves as well.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Like if you're outside of the music industry, if you're just on the fan side, or if you're new to the music industry, you look around and you say, well, I can sort of get a sense of what's cool within this scene or this genre or this location or whatever. And you kind of make some assumptions, but you really don't know until you look at the data, until you actually see, like, just because it looked cool, did it get the same engagement? How much money did we spend on a photo shoot or a video or some kind of marketing activation versus how much engagement or even conversions where people are purchasing tickets or maybe streaming more or playlisting things, how you track that. So you kind of need the actual data to see what was really cool in the sense of how people voted with their feet.
Exactly. And everyone's voting with clicks. Like it's something that you create, you might think is super cool and it's going to be really engaging with your audience, but then it flops. And being able to measure that, I think, is a really kind of an advantage in the industry. So anyone who's listening, start using things like smart URLs, trackers, that kind of thing, to really understand what's working, what's not, and don't be afraid to try new things. Being able to A/B test things is absolutely huge, and don't be upset if something doesn't work. It's just kind of a step in the right direction because you understand what your fans don't like, which is kind of a nice way to move forward.
Cool. Awesome. Oh man, this panel is awesome. You guys are doing such a great job dropping knowledge, sharing all these insights. I want to ask one thing as we lead into the Q&A. If someone in the room is interested in pursuing your career specifically, what should they be doing right now? Just give me a sign if one of you wants to jump in with that.
I can hop in quickly as soon as my mic's still on. So I would say yes to every opportunity that comes your way. You never know who you're going to meet, what kind of things you're going to be able to see. I have a background in artist management, A&R, label stuff. So I've been kind of through everywhere, and just being able to say yes and meet new people is how you end up in jobs that you really like. And again, you kind of figure out what you don't like too, which I think is a huge thing in the music industry. And that kind of helps to really guide you towards a position that you really feel comfortable in and what you want to do. And having knowledge in those areas that maybe you don't like is also a great way to understand the music industry as a whole.
Awesome. Thanks. Lorena or Madisyn, any career advice for people who want to fill your role someday?
I can jump in. I do want to hear Madisyn's perspective as well. I guess real quick, I think it is very important to keep your connections. I know Andrew kind of touched on this, but the music industry is really big. And I think sometimes if you are open to it, doors will come to you if you present yourself for certain opportunities. So for example, I started off as an intern at a small black box theater in Manhattan. I had no idea. I knew I loved music, but I had no idea where I was going to be in it. I made a connection there who brought me to another job, which was in a venue in Brooklyn. And then from there, I gained all of these different skills to, be introduced and interview for Primary Wave. So there's never just like one way to do something. Some people think that you have to go to school and you have to do all of these very expensive courses and whatnot. And I think that sure, there's multiple things that you can gain from where those situations. And I'm not knocking it. I think it's very important to have that knowledge because that's what is going to represent you, right, when you're in those rooms. But I also think that your will is a big part of it. And if you're just kind of coasting by, letting things happen or keeping yourself, in that space of oh, it's not going to happen for me. It probably won't. So I would say just keep an open mind and just introduce yourself to people. You have so many ways to connect with people, right? As we were talking about. So don't be afraid to do so.
Awesome. Thanks, Lorena. Madisyn, would you give us a quick career hint? We've got tons of more questions we're going to be able to get to, but I would like to hear from you there.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I've done a little bit of everything just to get my feet wet and figure out what I do and don't like to do. I think like my biggest advice is really to start now and be good to people, especially your peers. You never know where anyone is going to be. So the people to the left and the right of you are just as important to the people that you think are, you're looking up to.
Nice.
Your community is everything.
Awesome. Thanks. What an amazing panel. Zainab, are we handing the mic back to you?
Yeah, I'm back on camera to help with the Q&A. We have so many questions, I think more than we can get to in the next 10 minutes, but I hope that people feel free to, keep networking. I'm going to go with order, and then I apologize in advance to everybody whose questions we don't get to. So the first question came from Adam Paddock. Adam is an artist, producer, and strategic communications major at Ohio State University. And he said, what strategies do you see work for artists who get off the ground? I have a consistent 5,000 monthly listeners. What would you recommend for steps moving forward? And please feel free to jump in.
Anyone want that one? Lorena?
Yeah, I think we all have great perspectives, but I think from my end, I would say it goes back to the community, right? And using that data that Andrew was talking about, and Madisyn with the community. So it's if you are already seem to be looking at your stats and what's happening, where are those listeners? How can you get in touch with those people? How can you thank them? How can you get to know what they want to hear from you next? All of that is going to build that relationship, and they're going to feel special. You're going to feel special. It's all about that partnership. So don't overlook that. 5,000 monthly streams is a great place to be if you are starting out, and you can just continue to build that, because those 5,000 people can introduce you to more, and who are their networks and how do they become a part of it too.
Yeah, and just to hop on that too, it's community, like Lorena said, is the biggest thing. It's finding like-minded artists as well to kind of to come up with you, if you want to call it like that. When I was in artist management, I saw groups of artists come up together, and that's why you see kind of those friends groups within artists. It's everyone helped each other out along the way. So don't think you're going to do it by yourself, because you're not. It's all about the people around you, people who want the best for you as well. And just remember, everyone starts at 0 streams when they first start on Spotify. So congrats on 5,000. Soon you're going to be hungry for 10,000, then 1 million, and eventually you'll get there. So keep grinding.
Zainab, you want to give us another question?
Yes, Maya Eden, who is a music industry student, said, Maya had 2 questions. One is the general one, and one is more specific. What was your aha moment when you first started out for pushing your marketing to the next level? And then the more specific one is, are email mailing lists still effective with the new generation moving more exclusively to social media?
Any takers?
Yeah, I can tackle the mail list one, because that's something that we use quite a bit on the data side. Email's making a comeback. It's very counterintuitive, I think. But again, it's that one-to-one communication, right? Seeing pre-sale codes in your inbox, things coming up, things like that, as well as SMS. SMS communication is absolutely huge now. We touched on community before, but the return on ad spend we're seeing by sending out like links to ticket links the day before festivals go on sale, it's insane. So actually establishing and collecting those SMS numbers, those email lists, everything like that, it's a great start, and it's something, again, you own and you'll always have. So definitely start building those out.
And I think on the aha moment for myself was really just trusting my gut, because a lot of like what you're trying, like Andrew kind of mentioned, you can't be afraid for something to not work. You just kind of have to try it. It's the only way to figure it out, especially in our day and age of social media. A lot of it is trial and error. So what worked yesterday might not work today. So you just have to keep trying something new. And I think it's just like that. Trust yourself. just try it. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, I would say also just a quick combination of the two. I think my aha moment is being able to grind and work hard and then finally like one day wake up and be like thankful for where you're at. You know, I think sometimes if you're just too dialed in, again, like I said, and you're focusing on what you don't have, you kind of get lost in it. So you can get there someday, but right now just be appreciative of where you are and continue to work hard, and then you'll be able to do that in the future as well. And then I would say with the email list too, I'm a big fan of email, but I think it's also about the strategy of what you're putting out, right? Because if everyone is doing like buy now 25% off, you're going to get lost in the noise. So how do you stand out? What knowledge are you bringing, or special, I guess, like aspect so that people actually click on your email?
Yeah, and just to hop in as well, just for my aha moment was the moment I took a step back and kind of appreciated where I was and where I started. So that's kind of, so you wake up one day, like Lorena said, and you're like, oh my goodness, like I'm working in a job doing this and that with these brands and festivals, and it's really appreciating your own journey as well as something that you definitely need to do along the way.
Awesome. You guys are on fire. Zainab, you got one or two more questions?
Yeah, I am going to be cruel and pick the more popular ones from the first set of questions. We have a question from Emily Ward, an Ohio State University senior. And Emily asked, how did music marketing change from pre-COVID to post-COVID in your respective roles? What about your job changed?
Nothing. It's all been exactly the same. COVID?
I think yeah, COVID definitely kind of pushed everything to super short form. People's attention spans during COVID were shrunk by at least half. I know the data we saw on like video ads and that kind of thing, for the people who were able to pivot to online live streams, that kind of thing. If you don't have their attention within 3 seconds, they're gone. So that's definitely something we saw was making sure everything, you hook someone in off the bat. And I don't think that's going to change moving forward. I think everyone's kind of got so much being thrown at them on their feeds, on the For You pages, that kind of thing. So it's creating that hook from the beginning in short form.
Working in the live space, it's pretty obvious that it changed a lot for me, you know, but it really did strengthen, you know, working in the digital space. I'd say primarily, like, you know, we're not searching for billboards. We're just like, oh, well, push it to digital, which is, you know, a space that I pretty much lived in already. So I did see certain things change, but I think the biggest thing was people's appreciation grew for social media work. For sure.
We have 4 minutes left, so I'm going to squeeze in 1 or 2 more questions. This is from Becky A, who is a music industry and marketing student at Oklahoma State University. And Becky asked, this is for Andrew, but please feel free to jump in. Are there any analytics tools or languages that are more prominent in the music industry that college students should try to utilize or learn about, like HTML, SQL, etc.?
Yeah, so I think SQL is a really great one if you're starting to work with databases, that kind of thing. Having a basic understanding for HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So basically anything to do with like computer science would be a great base to kind of start off. There's tons of free resources out there. I'm always learning myself. I set time aside each week to kind of go over things and improve my knowledge in those areas. That is somewhere I'm short on. So yeah, so there's tons of free resources. Definitely look towards the computer science side of things. It's just going to become more and more database based, I guess, everything moving forward. And that's kind of what data is, right? It's just making, understanding what's happening and being able to kind of take those data points and provide information on what's actually happening and understanding.
Great. Okay, let's do one more. Sorry, this, as people post questions, things get like moving and, okay, I'm going to take Camila Sanchez this question. How do you guys promote a show? What is the most important when a band or artist is going on tour, for example?
I think the biggest things are those ads now, right, Andrew?
Yeah. So there's something that we kind of in the music industry and the marketing side called tentpole moments. So it's having things like your announce set up, having your pre-sale set up, your on sale, And then after your on sale is making sure you're engaging people up until the event as well. So it's really creating those like FOMO moments, like you don't want to miss out on like price increases, sold out shows, that kind of thing. So it's definitely creating like hype around these certain tentpoles. And they're called tentpoles just because of the way they kind of ramp up and ramp down kind of thing. But it's always making sure you've got your strategy in place and making people excited for the different moments along the way up until the show.
Anyone else?
Do we want to fit another question, or do we want to?
We can fit another question.
Okay.
Stephanie Knight from Minneapolis. I apologize, Stephanie, if I didn't get your other affiliations. When you're trying to discover your target market or audience, where is the first place you start? How do you know which media platform to utilize first to find your core audience?
That's a great question, right? Because you're starting from scratch, and it can be overwhelming. And I primarily work with artists that have, you know, those followings already instilled. So I think it's, you know, if you have to start off from scratch, like Andrew mentioned, you're at 0 streams, right? You're starting from nowhere. It really is that inner community of where you can start. So if it's your you know, if you're playing at shows, how are you collecting those emails? How are you collecting those contacts? If you are, you know, starting to do SoundCloud, right? That kind of connection is where people will begin and follow along, right? And everyone started from 0, especially nowadays. Like, look at Lil Nas X, right? He's an amazing example. I think even in like 2019, he was just starting to put out music. And I know that it's like a very extreme example too, because not everyone is going to become that overnight. But I think it just goes to show his passion of, he knew exactly what he wanted to stand for. So he used that to his advantage and worked very hard to do so, you know, whether it's building memes every single day, because that's how he was communicating with people, then it became something. So you have to start and you have to ignite that fire to and continue. It's not just, oh, I posted on Instagram once and no one looked at it and that's it. No, you have to be social in the social media. You have to build that. If you just expect to have 1,000 views on your video the next day, that's not going to happen. You have to have that consistency.
Yeah, and just to add to that as well, on the data side is there's free tools on a lot of these platforms that have analytics, insights, that kind of thing. So use them, understand them, ask questions. What does this mean? What does that mean? Is this what I want to do? Is this kind of like, does this reflect what I'm trying to do? So I really implore people to use like Spotify for Artists, use the SoundCloud analytics, Instagram insights, and kind of piece those together into a bigger picture to understand kind of the different areas that you're kind of posting on, how they're reflecting and how they're like engaging with people, and really using those free tools. And then as you progress in your careers, you'll start to get into things like Chartmetric and all those kind of paid tools for analytics, but definitely start small and kind of build a solid base, and you'll be set.
All right. Well, sadly, we have to wrap this amazing session up. Let's give a round of virtual applause for our experts on this session. Feel free to post claps and exclamation marks in the chat. Again, thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you at the next session.
Bye. Thanks, Madisyn,
Thank you,
Andrew,
everyone.
Lorena.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good job.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.